if you look at the misleading of language is the hard bit, I think, because there was a really good piece of, not sorry to mention the CPA again, you know, because I'm a big fan of theirs and I can't help it. There's some really good people that I communicate with. You've got to look that there was, you know, claims that my product is fireproof, and you go, well, what does that mean? Because actually, you know,
fireproof is the big.
I know, because I'm fireproof to about 40 degrees C, and after that, I'm not fireproof. If that makes sense. So that's a bit misleading, isn't it, in its own right? So I think we have to get the language right, and I think the CCPI does a lot of that. I think, if not all of it. So I say I can't comment too much because the CPA might say to me, "Paul, you're saying the wrong thing here." And I don't want to say the wrong thing if that makes sense, because they've done such a fantastic piece of work with this, and as I said, everyone's going to benefit. I think they will cover a lot of that. I think the hard bit is, and I think it all comes down to your original point at the start about Regulation 7, which is fantastic. And I'm like, everyone goes on about competency and compliance. But Regulation 7 is the thing that I'm always telling people. Regulation 7. I can't see anything else but that. So if you go to a manufacturer, as I said earlier, and you go, I want a fire damper, and actually I've got a specification from a consultant, but maybe that consultant's probably feeling the same as this person that's going to manufacture, doesn't really know how to get to an appropriate classification for that product because they're not an expert on the fire element. And actually, you could be the fire engineer doesn't really know what that product does, because I'm not sure that fire engineers go down to labs and test products with damper manufacturers, and I don't think that's where they are. It's about overall strategy and, you know, policies of fire and the building, and they're really clever in that element. But I'm saying that they're the best people for products. That's a different skill set. So unless you get everyone together at the start to actually clarify what that product's supposed to do for that risk and building in space, you could go to a manufacturer and actually, not just about misleading claims, it could be actually you're misleading yourself in the question you're asking. So everyone needs a bit of help with this. Does that make sense? So, you know, there's a manufacturer saying, you know, my piece of kit can survive for 45 years in a fire at this resistance, you know, just being over-exaggerating here a little bit, when actually the reality is it does 120 minutes, you know. But there could be a misleading claim where someone says, I've got a motorised piece of fire equipment that opens and shuts like a damper, but it hasn't got the resilience for testing, so it hasn't been cycle tested. So if you're testing it once a week in a building, it may be that after it's open and shut so many times, actually, it's not really appropriate for that circumstance anymore. Does that make sense? It's a bit like going to a wall manufacturer, this is probably a really good one, and saying, I want a 120-minute fire-rated wall in my basement corridor. At least all the bins are going through. But actually what you wanted was a wall with good mechanical impact as well, because once the bin's a bit at 16 or 17 times, the wall's never going to perform anyway, is it? Does that make sense? You've got to look at it from both people's eyes and say, if you ask for the information in the right order, you'll get the right response. It's the validation of actually, is it what you wanted that's appropriate to that first of all? Then they can say, I can either do it or I can't. It enables you then to question it.